The Five Little Peppers and How They Grew. Chapter 11. The Search for Phronsie. One day a few weeks later, Phronsie was out by the apple tree in the backyard, the orchard as it was known to the Peppers, when she heard the sweet piping sounds of a hand organ being played, and it was such a merry tune. Leaving her rag doll under the tree, Phronsie ran out front towards the music and discovered a man in the middle of the road, cranking away at the hand organ, while at the end of a long rope was a lively little monkey wearing a jacket and cap. Phronsie had never seen a real live monkey before, and she was fascinated by the animal. Even more so when, to her delight, he tipped his cap and then made a courtly bow. Phronsie, who was not the least bit frightened, put out her hand as if to pet the animal. The little monkey, whose name was Jocko, began to make faces and beg for something to eat. Then the organ grinder struck out another tune and snapped the rope sharply. The monkey immediately danced around and did so many comical things that the small audience of onlookers roared with laughter. Mrs. Pepper, who had come out of the house to join the group, told the man, "I can't pay you, sir, for amusing my children with your music and your little monkey, but I will be glad to give you both something to eat." She returned a moment later with some brown bread and 2 cold potatoes. The organ grinder looked very cross. "Haven't you got nothing better than that?" he asked. "It's what we have to eat ourselves," said Mrs. Pepper. Without so much as a thank you, the man threw the bread down in the road. Jocko, however, was not that ungrateful. He ate his share thankfully, with the assistance of Polly and Phronsie, and when he was through, he gobbled up the portion that had been tossed on the dusty road. As the organ grinder and Jocko moved on, Polly and Mrs. Pepper returned to their housework. A little distance down the road, the man struck up another tune. Phronsie, who had started to go back to the orchard to tell the doll all about what had happened, now listened again, and then ran off towards the music once more. 2 hours later, Polly went out to the orchard to call Phronsie in, but all that she found was the little rag doll. Phronsie was gone. A frantic search began for the little girl, but it was to no avail. Phronsie was simply nowhere to be found. Ben hurriedly called the family and a number of neighbors together to plan what could be done. "It's no use looking around here any more," Ben began. "We'll have to search all the roads looking for that organ grinder and his monkey. I'm going to take Deacon Brown's wagon along the Hingham Road. Someone else must go to Toad Hollow." "I'll go on the stagecoach," volunteered Joel. He had cried so. "I'll find her." "Hurry then, catch it at the corner," said Ben, after only a moment's hesitation. The entire village soon knew that Phronsie Pepper had been lured away from home by a cross organ grinder and a monkey, and dozens of people joined the search along the hot, dusty roads. On the stagecoach, Joel sat next to an elderly gentleman, and in his anxiety to see both sides of the road at once, he accidentally knocked the man's hat off. But he scarcely had time to apologize before crying out, "Stop, there she is!" When the stagecoach stopped, however, they discovered that what Joel had seen was only a pink apron flapping on a clothesline, which he had somehow mistaken for Phronsie. So away the stage rumbled again. The others were having the same luck. No trace could be found of the child. To Ben, driving along the Hingham Road, the minutes seemed like hours. "I must find her," he muttered. "I can't go back without her and see Momsey's face." On and on he went, peering into every thicket. The hot sun burned his face, but it didn't matter. Suddenly the horse stopped. Ben started to snap the reins to make the horse move on, when, "Whoa!" he roared, causing the horse a bit of confusion. He had seen something on the ground, a bundle perhaps, and close by it was a big black dog. Over both was a little boy, a little bigger than Ben. his gray eyes flashing defiance to anyone who might approach. Ben climbed down from the wagon and came a little closer. The bundle on the ground was Phronsie. "Don't wake her up," warned the boy. "She's very tired." "But she's my sister, Phronsie. I've been looking all over for her." The dog began to growl. "It's all right, Prince. He's all right," said the boy to the dog. "Lie down." "What happened?" Ben wanted to know. "Prince and I were out for a walk about a mile from here," the boy began. "I live over in Hingham, that is. I do this summer. Then I saw this man with the hand organ and the monkey and the little girl coming along the road. She was crying. As soon as Prince saw that, he growled. And then the man saw us, and he looked so mean. I knew there must be something wrong. I asked him what he was doing with that little girl, and then she looked up and begged so with her eyes, and all of a sudden broke away from him and ran towards me, screaming, 'I want Polly.' Well, the man sprang after her, and I don't know what he might have done, but luckily Prince was around." Here the boy patted the black dog affectionately, "and he jumped on the man and chased him far away, you may be sure." "Was Phronsie frightened of you?" Ben asked. "Not a bit. She just clung to me like everything, and I only wish she was my sister," the boy added. "Well," said Ben, as the boy finished, "I'm certainly glad you are around to take care of Phronsie. Now I must get her home as fast as I can for Momsey and Polly." "I'll help you carry her to the wagon," volunteered the boy. "Maybe she won't even wake up." The big dog moved away a step or two, but still kept his eye on Phronsie as the boys lifted her into the wagon, and indeed Phronsie did not wake up. Ben lingered a moment. "Thank you for all you've done," he said. "Thank Prince," laughed the boy. "He did the most." "Would you like to come and visit us sometime?" Ben asked. "You'd be most welcome, and anybody'll tell you where the Peppers live." "Thank you," said the boy. "I'd like that." Then he laughed as he pointed to Phronsie in the wagon. "Is she a Pepper too? And you?" "Oh, yes," said Ben, laughing. "There are 5 of us, besides Mother." "How nice," said the boy. "Well, goodbye. Come on, Prince." Then it was home as fast as Ben could return, and what joy there was in the little brown house when it was known that Phronsie was safe and sound. The little girl woke up briefly to hug and kiss everyone, and having done that, she slept straight through the night. Chapter 12. Jasper King. Ben was out by the woodpile a few days later chopping up logs for Polly when the merry-faced boy and the big black dog came up to him. "Hello, Ben," said the boy. "How's your little sister?" "Fine, just fine," retorted Ben. Then he turned to the house, shouting, "Polly!" But Polly was already at the door, waiting to be introduced. "This is my sister Polly," Ben began. But then he stopped, realizing suddenly that he did not know the boy's name. "I'm Jasper King," said the boy, taking off his cap and holding out his hand. Polly took his hand in hers and shook it warmly. "And this is Prince," added Jasper, indicating the black dog. Polly immediately threw her arms around the dog's neck. "Oh, I know all about you. You're the wonderful dog that saved Phronsie." "Is her name Phronsie, really?" asked the boy with interest. "Well, it's really Sophronia," said Polly, "but we've always called her Phronsie. Sophronia, that's a big name for such a little thing. And yours is Polly, isn't it?" "Yes, that is my real name, is Mary, but, well, everyone has always called me Polly." "I like it too," declared Jasper. "And his name is Ben," said Polly. "Ebenezer, you mean," said Ben, correcting her. "Well, he's been to us." "He just doesn't seem like an Ebenezer, does he, Jasper?" "Not altogether," laughed their visitor. A minute later they were in the kitchen of the little brown house, where Phronsie dashed up to Jasper to give him a big hug and kiss, and Joel and David were introduced to the boy whom they had heard so much about from Ben. Everyone had to stroke Prince's furry head and back, and to tell him fondly how much they admired him. The dog seemed to understand everything. "Oh, I wish Momsey was home," said Polly. "Momsey's our mother, you know," she explained to Jasper. "You must all have some wonderful times here," said Jasper, with a touch of longing in his voice. "I haven't got a mother, nor any brothers or sisters. There's just father and myself. Oh, there are some servants, cooks and butlers and housekeepers, but no real family of my own. And I so miss having one." Polly couldn't even imagine how anyone could feel without a family or a mother, and the words were enough to make her heart ache all over for Jasper. There was nothing she wouldn't have done as a favor to the boy who had helped them so much. "You must come here often then," said Polly. "We'll share our Momsey with you." "Would you really?" asked Jasper, hardly believing his ears. "Of course," and all the 5 little Peppers said this at once. "We have lots of fun together," added Polly, "and it'll be just that much more fun with you here. Why, we can all try baking maybe. We have a new stove. Did you know that, Jasper? Here it is." And then the stove had to be shown inside and out, and all its wonderful features had to be described. This led to a discussion of how terribly bad the old stove had been, and how good Dr. Fisher was, and how the children had come down with the measles and everything. Jasper indeed had little time to do anything but listen, and he sympathized and rejoiced in turn as the events of the Peppers were recalled in vivid detail. "Here's Momsey now," said Polly as Mrs. Pepper entered the room. "Joey, go and take her bundles." Mrs. Pepper stopped to kiss Phronsie, and then she saw Jasper. "I'll just bet a cookie," she said, "that this is the young man who saved our little girl." "Oh, Mrs. Pepper," said Jasper modestly, "I didn't do much. It was really Prince." And as he looked at Mrs. Pepper, he thought, "Her eyes are just like Polly's, laughing ones, only Polly's are brown." He liked her at once. As Polly went on with her work and the others separated, Jasper and Mrs. Pepper had a long talk. "Where do you live, in Hingham?" Mrs. Pepper asked at last. "Well, Father and I don't really live there," Jasper told her. "We're only spending the summer at the hotel. My father hasn't been well, you see, and he has been hoping that the change of scene and the climate would do him some good. I don't believe it has helped him much myself." Suddenly Jasper glanced at the clock. "I'm afraid I'll have to go now, or I'll miss the stage, and then Father will never let me come here again. Come on, Prince." "Oh, don't go," wailed Phronsie. "Make him stay," she pleaded with her mother. "I can't, Phronsie," answered Mrs. Pepper. "Not if he thinks he ought to go. But he'll come again, won't you, Jasper?" "I'd like that very much." "Come next Thursday, then," said Polly. "May we bake something then, Momsey?" "I'm sure I don't care," laughed Mrs. Pepper. "But you won't find much in the provision room to bake with." "Well, we can pretend," said Polly, "and we can cut the cakes with the heart shape, and they'll do for everything." So Jasper and Prince took their leave, all of the Peppers going outside to the little brown gate with them, and already it seemed as if Thursday would never come. Chapter 13. Letters and Gifts. Thursday dawned bright and sunny, and it was bright and sunny all day. There were many preparations made at the little brown house, and a kind of happy excitement filled the air. But the old clock ticked away hour after hour, and Jasper didn't come. It was just incredible that there should be no sign of the boy and his black dog, but there was no denying it. As evening came on, Polly had to put Phronsie to bed. The little girl had not eaten much for supper. So disappointed was she, and her eyes were now full of tears. "It must be that he just couldn't come," said both Ben and Polly, but Joel and David felt that he had broken his word. "He promised," said Joel. "You know he did." I think maybe his father wouldn't let him come, said Polly, wiping away a tear. Jasper would have come if he could. The next morning Ben had to go to the store, and there Mr. Atkins, who was also the postmaster, said, "A letter just arrived here for your sister Polly." "For Polly? Oh, it can't be. She's never had one," said Ben. "She's got one now," insisted Mr. Atkins, "and here it is." So saying, he handed over a little white envelope which was addressed Miss Polly Pepper, near the turnpike, Badgertown. My, what excitement there was in the kitchen of the little brown house a few minutes later as the precious envelope was put into Polly's hands. All of the other Peppers gathered round her. "Where is it from?" asked Mrs. Pepper. "The postmarks are all rubbed out," answered Polly. "I can't tell." "Well, open it for goodness sake, and find out," said Ben, who could not stand any more delay. At last the envelope was cut open and the letter unfolded. It read, "Dear Miss Polly, I was so sorry I couldn't come on Thursday, but my father was sick and I couldn't leave him. I had a cold too, but I will come some other day if it's just as convenient for you, because I would like to join you in the baking fun and the nice time. Give my love to all and remember me to your mother, your friend, Jasper King." "There! I knew there had to be a reason why he didn't come," cried Polly, flying around with the letter in her hand. Ben was just as happy as she was, and everyone felt much better. Phronsie felt so much better that she decided it would be appropriate for them all to make a gingerbread boy for the poor sick man, Jasper's father. "A gingerbread boy?" asked Polly incredulously. "Couldn't it be some little cake instead?" "No, that isn't like a gingerbread boy," Phronsie insisted. "He'll like that best." "Oh, let her," said Joel. "She can bake it, and Dave and I will eat it." "That wouldn't be fair," said Polly. "Well, we'll make some little cakes and a gingerbread boy." "Yes, and Deacon Blodgett can bring them to Mr. King when he goes over to Hingham tomorrow," said Ben. "I heard him tell Mrs. Blodgett that he was going past the hotel." "Yes, and Deacon Blodgett can bring them to Mr. King when he goes over to Hingham tomorrow," said Ben. "I heard him tell Mrs. Blodgett that he goes right past the hotel. We can put it together in a box real nice, and it will please Jasper too, I'm sure." After that, there was no need to say anything more. Mrs. Pepper would have consented to almost any plan then. Soon there was a pleasant hum and bustle round the table as the flour and sugar and raisins were being mixed into a batter, and then Polly began to fill little scalloped tins with some of the cake mixture. "That doesn't look like a gingerbread boy," said Phronsie, looking at it suspiciously. "Well, it's not," said Polly. "Here, take this." She gave the child a handful of cake mixture, stiffened with flour to the right thickness. "You can call that a gingerbread boy. It will make a beautiful one." A few minutes later Phronsie exhibited a particularly misshapen specimen of cake figure in her hand. "Isn't it the beautifulest, Polly?" she asked. "Oh dear," groaned Polly. "It looks just awful, doesn't it, Ben? You'd better let Davy and me have it. His leg is crooked, see?" And Joel, chuckling, "No, no," shrieked the child. "That's my sick man's gingerbread boy, isn't it?" And so, eventually, after the little cakes and the gingerbread boy had been baked, they were packed into a box by Polly, and at Phronsie's insistence, the gingerbread boy was put right on top. Mrs. Pepper had something to say, too. She had the children write a note of their own and put it with the little cake so that Jasper and his father would know where the parcel came from. Polly actually wrote the letter with help and suggestions from Ben and Mrs. Pepper, and they all signed it, or had either Ben or Polly guide their writing hand when the signatures were written. The parcel was tied securely with string, Polly putting in 4 or 5 strong knots to avoid all danger of its undoing, and then Ben addressed it with a good many flourishes. Mr. Jasper E. King, Hotel Hingham. Each of the children had to take the parcel in their own hands to see for themselves how it weighed, and then Ben was off with it to Deacon Blodgett's. Chapter 14. Visitors at the Little Brown House. 3 days later, Jasper and Prince arrived at the Little Brown Gate to thank all the Peppers personally for their very thoughtful gift. "Did you really like it?" Ben asked, after they had exchanged greetings. "Like it?" cried Jasper. "It was just wonderful. The cakes were simply delicious. Polly is certainly smart to be able to bake like that," he added admiringly. "Polly knows how to do everything well," agreed Ben. "By the way, was your father angry about the gingerbread boy?" "The gingerbread boy?" cried Jasper, holding his sides as he began to laugh. "Oh, it was so funny. You ought to have seen my father, Ben." "Oh, then he was angry." "Hardly. Why, it did him lots of good. It really did, when he saw that gingerbread boy." Here Jasper giggled again. He just put back his head and laughed. I've never heard him laugh so hard as he did then. Afterwards, he felt as good as he could be, and he says he's coming to see the little girl who baked it for him before we go home. "Coming to see us?" gasped Ben. "Yes," said Jasper, who had hardly gotten over his own astonishment about it. "Oh, there's Phronsie. Phronsie, your gingerbread boy was just wonderful. Father liked it very much." "Did he eat it?" asked Phronsie. "He hasn't eaten it yet," said Jasper, smiling at the others. "He's keeping it to look at, Phronsie." "I should think so," groaned Polly. Then they had the baking. Polly tied one of her mother's aprons on Jasper, as Mrs. Pepper had suggested. Jasper had such a taste for cookery, and had so many improvements on simple ideas, that the children thought it the most fortunate thing in the world that he came. Jasper and the 5 little Peppers became the warmest of friends. The boy came to the cheery little home again and again. When he wasn't there, the hours seemed to pass very slowly. One day at the end of September, a carriage drawn by 2 magnificent horses stopped at their door. "Goodness me!" exclaimed Mrs. Pepper in consternation. "Here comes Mr. King, I do believe, and the house is so untidy." "Well, Phronsie's clean anyway," said Polly. There was no time to tidy up. Jasper's father, for it was indeed he, was walking slowly from the little brown gate to the big flat stone that served as a step. He was a tall, rather heavy-set gentleman, and he leaned at every other step on a gold-headed cane. Jasper and Prince were beside him. Mr. King's first words as Polly answered his rap on the door were, "Is this little Miss Pepper?" "I don't know, sir. I'm Polly," she answered uncertainly. "Is your mother in?" asked the old gentleman. He was so tall he could scarcely enter the low door, and then Mrs. Pepper came forward, and Jasper introduced her. The old gentleman bowed, and then sat down as Mrs. Pepper formally thanked him for all that Jasper had done for them. "Now, where is the little girl who baked me that gingerbread man?" Mr. King asked. Phronsie, who had been listening, rushed out from behind the door and came up to Mr. King, forgetting all else but her poor sick man. Shaking her yellow head, she looked up at him and asked, "Poor sick man, was my gingerbread boy good?" "Good? I should say so, little girl," said Mr. King, and in a moment Phronsie was on Mr. King's lap playing with his watch. Before anyone realized it, an hour had passed. Mr. King rose from his chair, saying that he and his son and Prince had to be leaving. "I'm delighted to have met you all," he said. "I'm glad I came. This was really my last opportunity to meet you this summer, you see, since we will be returning to the big city tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" said the Peppers in stunned surprise. "Oh, must you go back so soon?" "I'm afraid so. A telegram came this morning asking that I return immediately. Besides, my rheumatism has not been getting any better, and the hotel is also getting unpleasant. There are a number of annoyances that I cannot put up with, so that altogether I don't regret it." Mrs. Pepper, not knowing exactly what to say to this, wisely said nothing. Meantime, Jasper and the little Peppers were having a sad farewell over in the corner by themselves. "I'll write often," Jasper said, "and I hope you will write to me too." "Oh, we will," answered the children, trying not to cry. "Will you come back next summer?" asked Joel. "Yes, that is, if Father will only say yes." "Come, Jasper, we must go," said Mr. King, and Jasper knew by the tone that there must be no delay. Putting his hand in his pocket, Mr. King nervously considered giving Mrs. Pepper some money, but then he had second thoughts about the matter. A glance at her eyes told him that her pride would not permit the acceptance of such a gift, and so his hand came out again quite empty. "I'll find some other way," he told himself. The children hastily said a lot of good-byes, Prince receiving many loving pats on his head, and then the visitors were gone. The Peppers went into their little brown house and shut the door. We will continue the rest of this story, which I believe will be ending next time on Wednesday. And thanks for listening to Miss Retro Reads.